and gentlemen, welcome to yet another 6 Blocks Apart as we deal with the burning issues of our time. Special guest this week, my buddy, John York, everybody. Yay!
Exciting. Actually, he's your brother, right?
Yeah.
Yes, I am. His long-lost brother. We hate it.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, that's how it
Fell
started.
madly in love with.
You remember that night we were working down at St. Pedro and I pushed you into the water?
For real?
Yeah.
Were you supposed to put it in the water?
Yeah.
I remember.
Yeah.
Oh, you were
It was
supposed to.
cold too.
Wow.
It was cold.
Oh, it
yeah.
was great. And not only was it cold, it was very polluted.
Yeah.
They put all
Yeah.
kind of iodine and everything else in my ears after they pulled me out. But it was great.
Oh my God.
The odd thing about that was I had on a heavy jacket and my jeans and my pants, and they threw me back in, and then they're filming me, swimming back to the ladder to come back to shore. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. I thought I was going to drown for a minute there because all these clothes I had on, nothing was buoyant, and I was just struggling to get back to shore.
My brother.
But I made it.
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
what protection did they have for you when you did this? Did they have somebody in the water at least in case something did happen?
No, I don't remember. I don't think so.
They're like, yeah, whatever.
Exactly.
We didn't
I
do
was so
silly
happy to have
things
a
like
shot.
that.
If I died on that day, that would have been fine.
But-
I was
but
just
it-
so thrilled.
But if you wouldn't have made it back, at least at the end of the show, they would have had a special, your name in the credits.
Yeah.
Dedicated too.
In memory.
So that was back in 1990, wasn't it?
1991.
And
January.
You've been on the show
Wow.
29 years.
where were you
Yep.
filming this? What body of water?
That was San Pedro
Okay.
on an
And it-
old tanker, an abandoned tanker.
No, it was a Liberty
the
ship.
water is polluted down there, yeah.
It was an old Liberty ship.
Was it?
Yeah, and it was a boat that you could hire. It didn't have a motor in it. So what you had to do is when you hired it, you had to hire a tugboat as well to maneuver it around. And it was an expensive proposition.
Wow. So was that the first year you came on to General Hospital?
That was
Yeah.
when I came on the show. That's when Gloria came back. So Gloria, Tristan can tell you more about the history of Gloria and the show. Gloria went away for a while after the heyday of the Luke and Laura and all that stuff. And then I guess she went away and the show kind of, fell off a little bit in the ratings. So ABC brought, as far as I know, Tristan, correct me where I'm wrong, but they brought Gloria back to, bring the show back. Tristan, I think, was in if I'm wrong, you were in year 11 and you were ready to head out of Dodge, right? And
Yeah,
they said, we're going to give you a story. We're going to give you a brother. We're going to create something fantastic for you. Please stay.
That part of it,
Thank God for me, he did.
Well, Gloria brought back this god-awful storyline called The Eckerts. And of all things, she brought Tony Geary back, the most iconic person in daytime. She brings him back as another character.
What?
And how he got talked into this, I really don't know. But anyway, the show itself was a ginormous flop. It's about a blue-collar family, something like a kind of a serious version of Roseanne. And it flopped.
He
big
came
time.
back with red hair.
Yeah, and he came back with a different eye color too. He had lenses.
I didn't realize.
He had lenses in the eyes.
So
He went the whole, Tony goes
Yeah.
the whole route when he's doing something.
did people in Fort Charles say, "Hey, you look a lot like Luke"?
You know what? I swear to you, every scene I had with him, I'm just looking at him and I said, okay, what's my motivation here? I know this guy from another time, but I can't just look at him and pretend
That he's not Luke.
that he's not Luke Spencer. Well, and Gloria would come out. She never had a solution to any of these problems. She'd come out chewing gum. Well, dear, you know him. Okay, I know him. How do I know him? Well, you just do. Oh, okay, it's one of those. Okay, right. Okay, so away we go. But every time Geary and I had a lot of trouble with that.
Yeah, I don't blame you. That's crazy.
Trying to make it real. It was so fucking stupid, I'm telling you.
As I remember it, I remember it that way, but I also remember that what happened was because to bring in, Gloria brought in like 9 people for the Eckert family. They had this bakery, this huge set that was as big as the nurses' hub and the lounge or the nurses, the hub at the hospital. The nurses thing was this brand new, incredibly expensive set for all these new people. So to bring in 9 new people, and I was one guy coming into an already beloved, Robert Scorpio, Anna, Robin Scorpio, Kimberly McCullough, they were there still, but they had to get rid of a lot of people to make room for this new family. So a lot of people that were on the show for many years and the audience were very familiar with and liked were gone. So that was the conflict I remember, that the audience was really struggling, being force-fed this Eckert family, which they really, they wanted a lot of their other people. And luckily for me, the fans gravitated to my storyline with Tristan and Finola and Kimberly because I just kind of was added on, to that equation. And I think within 6 to 9 months, pretty much everybody from the Eckert family was gone. And
the whole
Tony
idea
was,
of the Eckerts, the Eckerts were meant to spin off into their own series.
oh, really? I didn't know that.
That was the long-term plan for it. It was going to be a 30-minute sub, 5 days a week. And the ABC didn't like the figures, didn't like what was happening. So Gloria was told, get rid of it.
Was Jeannie Francis part of the Eckers?
No. So she was told to get rid of it. Well, of course, she didn't have a backup. And so she turns to me and she says, I have this wonderful idea. You're going to get married. I said, what? You're going to marry Anna. I'm going to fucking what? I exploded. Just went.
Because you were getting ready to marry Catherine Delafield.
Yeah. And she'd fired Edie. She'd fired Edie.
Okay, but
she was probably one of the casualties.
I remember you saying, I'm sorry, it was your wedding day. I can't marry you because I love Anna or something to that effect.
It was kind of wacky like that.
Yeah.
I was so against this. I so wanted them to keep Edie. Edie had a personality. She talented, and it worked so well between the two of us. But as is customary on a soap, a new producer comes in and they fire a whole lot of people that are not them.
Yeah.
That aren't their people. And, Finola was top of the heap at that particular point in there.
Wow.
And so, there was a fallout over it. And it was not a popular fallout either.
Mm-hmm.
So how did they introduce you as his brother? Did you come into the story, John, where you were like rivals immediately, or was there a falling out after your character came on?
I believe I kind of ran away, took off from the family. Robert was the favorite, if I remember correctly. This is 30 years ago, and I don't remember what I had for dinner last night. I believe I was just this guy that kind of bailed on the family and took off on my own and was very jealous and unhappy and hateful of the fact that, Robert was the golden boy and the star for mom and dad. And I went off and did my own thing.
Well, for some reason, I don't know where this came from, but I was blaming you for killing the parents in a light plane accident.
Oh my God.
Yeah. That was the root
I don't remember that.
of the dislike.
Have I ever said I'm sorry? I'm sorry.
No. But there was never anything to back that up.
Right.
I mean, it's not like we got into it. It was like I threw it out there, and then that was the end of it.
Yeah.
And shortly after, Phase On came on as well, right? Didn't Honors came on, and I mean, because your story, weren't you were only going to be there for one more year, but didn't that leak a little bit longer because the story was so good and the audience was loving what was going on?
I'm a little vague about that part of it.
Forgetting too.
I do remember watching, I believe it was Tony and I were on the deck you and Anders were fighting on a speedboat going off into the water, and the boat blew up.
Right.
And that was
right.
But of course we never found bodies, only to know that Robert
in reality
survived. But I remember
when they
that
shot
very
that
specific.
scene, I was gone. I'd already left the show.
Okay.
They were done. So
Wow.
I'd had enough. I mean, truly, I really had enough.
So how many times did you back on the show?
You came back.
Gloria came to me and said, well, why don't you take some time off? I remember. And I said, I am permanently. And she was fired 3 days later.
Wow. Wow.
A lot of people forgot about that.
So John, you haven't taken time off at all, right? You've been going.
Well, I was on until, contracts are everything in work. And I was under contract until I believe it was either 2000 and 2001. And then I was taken off contract for about a year and a half. I don't remember. Disney, I think, took over the show somewhere 94, 5, 6. Is that correct, Tris?
I know, maybe. This is after my time.
So, budgets were important, money was important, and it was about, the show was very large. They were discussing, who was working, who was not working. We can't just pay actors to, not work on the show. So, yes, I was on the show. I've been on the show all the time for that 1 year hiatus, but I worked like 5 or 6 shows, maybe 10 shows that year, and that was very scary. And then fortunately, things changed on the show with contract people, and Jill Farron Phelps was the executive producer, and God bless her, she brought me back a year and 3 months later and gave me my contract back.
Good.
It was a little bit less, so negotiation is everything.
Right.
But I've always said that 1 is more than 0. So when negotiating, 1 is more than 0. If I wanted more, I would get 0. So 1 is always good. When you've got a daughter in school and, family to feed and all that kind of stuff, it was great. And then I was under contract until 2014, then taken off contract again.
So is everybody?
I like to say I've been fired twice already, but still hanging on.
Sounds very soap opera-y.
But
It does, doesn't it?
Is everybody off contract now on the show, or is it?
Oh, no.
I wouldn't say everybody, but what I was told after 3 weeks into lockdown, everybody who had a contract was being paid. They were being paid according to their negotiated fee. So they're literally being paid a ton of money to sit around at home and do nothing. Well, they invoked force majeure, which is a little fine print on the contract, which literally means, if you read it, anything that they wanted to mean. They can fire you, they can take you off contract, they can do anything they want and just trump up no pun intended.
Yeah.
They can just invent whatever they want to, and that's what they did. Everybody who has a contract, I think, is now paid $25 a show. The advantage is the people like us who are not on contract, we're paid a lot more according to flashbacks.
Oh.
So, I mean, I haven't seen any money yet, but
I was going to say, honey, have I seen any money from flashback money? No, she's shaking her head no.
No.
Cut those dogs up. All right, I'm going to kill those dogs.
Oh, we all have them. We get
Yeah.
but
Everybody has such a nice background. I'm taking down my stupid background.
I see it. Is that she's there? Oh, we get to see your house.
These are all. This is my.
Oh,
There you go.
oh.
There, that's better.
There
I've
you
got
go.
pictures. I have no room, so I just tape pictures up. I just tape
Oh,
them
I
to
like that.
windows
That's
and
kinda
walls,
cool.
and that's what I do.
Before I thought you were in Soho.
Yeah, or in my bathroom in a shower somewhere.
Oh gosh, John, how did you get started in the whole business? Did you always want to do this? Act?
I knew when I was 9, 10 years old that I wanted to live in California. I didn't quite know that I wanted to be an actor. When I was in 5th grade, I was the Artful Dodger in my brother's high school senior play, Oliver. So that was a lot of fun. That was really my acting taste, bite at the apple.
Mm-hmm.
And life goes on. I go to college, majoring in marketing, like my brothers did, not knowing really what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to live in Hollywood. I thought about being a camera operator, being a stuntman, doing something that would allow me to be in the business, to live in Hollywood, live in California, be in the business. And as I was asking people different questions and getting different bits of advice, somehow it led me to acting. And, I describe it as every time I put my hand out for help, there was a hand there to lead me to a different direction. There was always someone. It wasn't overnight. This was here, and this guy led me to believe it or not, I went to John Robert Powers and I took a modeling class.
I remember that. Yes.
John Robert Powers.
What year did you arrive in LA?
1983. So let's see, I graduated.
All in that same period.
Graduated high school in 77, and I went to college for 2 years, 77, 78, 78, 79. 79, I came home. So I would say in 79, 80 is when, a lot of these questions were being answered, and I was just taking baby steps into getting into the business.
Yeah.
And the John Robert Powers acting class led me to the lady that was the director there was the girlfriend of a guy that ran a nightclub. So I wanted my days free for auditions. Mm-hmm. So she sent me over to him. I got a job as a doorman at this nightclub, PS Chicago, in downtown Chicago on Rush Street. At that nightclub, I needed an acting class too. So at that nightclub, there was a waitress who was taking class at Wisdom Bridge Theater. That's how I got involved at Wisdom Bridge Theater and met my acting teacher, Ed K. Martin, who I studied with in Chicago for a couple of years. And then he, 6 months before I came to California, came out to California. All at this time, all these overlaps were happening where my agent, also from John Robert Powers, let's back up, just the luck of it all. I feel like I'm boring everybody. But anyway.
God, I love
this.
All right, so the luck of it all, I met John Robert Powers. Sid Hope was her name, got me to PS Chicago. At the end of this 3-week crash course, is what was going to happen. The photographers, the actors, makeup artists all needed photographs. That's back when everybody was carrying a book, and you had to get 8x10s, and you actually now digital.
Right.
So I did a photo shoot with a makeup artist and a photographer. Everybody needed shots, and she did these photographs, and she did the makeup. And the makeup artist went around to the different agencies trying to get work for herself. She walked into this one agency and was showing all her pictures, and the print girl goes, "Who's this guy?" And she said, "John York." And she said, "I never met him, have him call me." So I went in and I met with Adrian, and she went to Ann Geddes, who was the agent, that was her agency, the Geddes agency, said, "I don't know, I just have a feeling about this guy." And whatever that meant. And I met with Ann. What do you want to be, an agent, or an actor or a model? I want to be an actor, okay, well, and she took me on. And then I went to PS Chicago, and started my acting class, so all these kind of things were happening all at the same time. And 3 years later, I remember watching Dr. Detroit with Dan Aykroyd, and who else was in Dr. Detroit? Was it Eddie Murphy? Or was it just a Dan Aykroyd movie?
I think it was just a Dan Aykroyd movie.
They were filming down at another bar called Faces, which is a very famous bar on nightclub down on Rush Street. And I remember standing at the window, looking at these big movie lights down on the street. They're doing a location. I'm wondering, am I ever going to get out of here? Because am I ever going to leave Chicago? Am I ever going to? And shortly thereafter, several casting people came out from California to meet with actors at different agencies. And Eve Brandstein was one of the casting directors. And I met with her. she gave Ann her recommendations for the actors that she felt, would have some marketability in California, Los Angeles. I was one of them.
Wow.
And Ann was going out to California every pilot season. Back in the day, it was pilot season. Now pilot season is all over the place.
Yeah.
But that was like February through beginning of May. And Ann would take a group of actors. Aidan Quinn was one of her actors at the time. Stephen Williams. I mean, this just goes back to the core of the Ann Gettys, just the greatest people I knew in Chicago, and these really solid folks. They would go out for pilot season. Some would stay in California. The third year of that move for Ann, she was working in another office and then would come back to Chicago. The third year she did this, she said, I'm going to stay in California. I'm going to open up my own office. And I was one of the 4 actors. It was myself, or 3 actors, myself, Alice LaPlaca, and Rick Kuhlman, who went out with Ann. And I knew, forget about it. It's like, it was a 6-week test period. If you're not happy, go back to Chicago. I knew I was not going back to Chicago, and I had $90 in my pocket.
Yeah.
I had $90 in my pocket, and I got on a Capital Airlines red-eye flight. And here we are,
Wow.
Didn't you have a prime show for a while?
What?
You had a primetime show for a while.
Werewolf.
Werewolf, yeah.
Yes.
So that was 1983 that I came to California, and I met my wife Vicky on an audition when I was that was in September. So that was January. I landed, met Vicky in September.
Wow.
I got the job. I liked her. I kept getting called back, and I liked her. I was going on the kept getting called back, and I kept talking to her, but I was afraid to ask her out. And I got cast in this part in a movie of the week called Chattanooga Choo Choo. And it was starring Barbara Eden and George Kennedy. And these dogs are the best dogs in the world, but their bark goes right through my head.
They're excited about something.
They are a squirrel. So they needed my wardrobe sizes. My agent was gonna, Vicky said I need his wardrobe sizes. My agent said I'll call John and get him back to you. And she said, no, I'll call John. So Vicky called me and we talked. And she said, you should celebrate. And I said, well, what do you want to do? So, oh, wow. And I'm like, are you nuts? I'm an actor. I have no credit card. I have driver's license. I'm broke.
$90 doesn't go too far.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we went on a date and we struggled. So that was 1983. And then I had some parts here and there, some of the fish that got away. I remember reading for Ridley Scott with Meg Ryan, sitting next to Meg Ryan for the Goose part in Top Gun. So I was put on tape for that. I read with Gina Davis for the Brad Pitt part in Thelma and Louise.
Oh, my
so,
gosh.
those were just great experiences.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
kind of like experiences that are saying, you're doing something right. You know what I mean? There's something going on, but it's just not working. And I got Werewolf in 1987. 88, it premiered. But so 87, we shot the show. We wrapped in December of 87. Early in 88, found out the show wasn't going to get picked up. One of the reasons I heard was because it was a half-hour show, and it was Werewolf, about a werewolf, and all the other shows were sitcoms. So they wanted it to be an hour show, and they never could come to an agreement about it being a half hour, being an hour. They canceled. They didn't pick it up, but then the writer's strike happened in 1988, and that killed everybody. That was a very long strike that went all the way through the summer. That went through spring, summer, and into the fall.
Yep.
And so that's 1988, and just an actor looking for work again. And luckily, some residuals helped out. Time goes by, Vicky gets pregnant, right? I don't know how that happened. Still trying to find out who the father is. And I went back to waiting tables at the Cheesecake Factory in Woodland Hills.
Oh,
and
wow.
I'm waiting tables. I remember seeing Lynn Herring. This is a great story. I was training, and I remember seeing Lynn walk in with Wayne. And I'm like, wow, that's Lynn Herring, And that was October, November. And then it was early December that I got the phone call about they're casting a major role at General Hospital. It's Tristan Rogers' younger brother. Do you want to go in for it? I'm like, are you kidding? Of course I want to go in for it. And of course, Tristan's Australian. So I went to Samuel French and got an Australian dialect tape. And I fooled everybody but Tristan.
And you lost your accent along the way.
Of course I did.
But
You move to Texas, you start talking like a Texan. That's all. That's how I explain.
But actually, the casting was good with the facial structure and the eyes. It was believable. It was believable.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting about that because when I tested, there were 5 guys that tested, 4 other guys that tested with me. And there was one guy that had this edge, this rugged, he was unshaven, and he just looked like he could be that Tristan brother. You're looking at everything and everyone, oh man, who's that guy, And so we went through that test with the 5 of us. And then they called me again, and they said they want to test you again with another guy. So it was me and one other guy. And I thought it was going to be him, but it was Paul Satterfield. And they really liked Paul.
Wow. He was an actor.
And I looked at Paul looked like Christopher Reeve. He looked like Superman. If you look at Paul and look at his pictures, and I'm thinking, this is great for me.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So, and I got the job, and they liked Paul so much that they gave him a contract role too. So we both, ended up on the show.
I find it interesting they didn't have you guys read together.
Well, you know what?
Well, they did.
That was unusual that they didn't actually put us together because Gloria liked to see how people were going to match up.
Yeah.
And what else was there apart from the words on the paper. She was famous for this. And so it's really unusual that such a central role as your character became wasn't put with me. It's really unusual.
Yeah, it was weird.
So, but it didn't happen. So
well, you were estranged. You didn't.
Yes.
You were. Maybe that's part of the reason.
Right.
Yeah, if there was no chemistry, it would be fine for the show because you're not.
Like, let's see them in action. So, did your character? I don't even know if the time frame is correct, but did you ever have any interaction with Rick Springfield's character?
No, I missed out on Rick, but I did work with Frisco, with Jack Wagner. Christina, they're always finding the chemistry with people. They brought on a couple of girls for me. It didn't really work out. Jack was on the show and off the show, and Christina didn't have someone on the show. I didn't have someone on the show. So the feeling is kind of like, well, let's see what happens there. I remember getting a sponge bath in a barn by Christina. And boom, off to the moon we went.
I hear that's very popular nowadays.
It was great. So Christina and I, she's just a darling and talented, beautiful, wonderful to work with. I've been very lucky to have her to work with all these years.
How hard can it be?
I thought you liked my beard. I mean, it makes me look distinguished, doesn't it?
It's old and it's very boring.
I can't believe I'm letting you do this to me.
You have no other choice.
You can't keep your hands off me, can you?
Mac, stop talking. I need you to be very, very still. I can't be responsible for what might happen.
Jack came back a couple of times because Christina and Jack were together in real life, and she got pregnant. So they wrote a story where Frisco, actually the first story was a heart story where BJ, Jackie Zeman's child, got killed in a school bus or something, and Maxie all of a sudden had a heart congenital defect, and so the heart beat. They took BJ's heart and put it in Maxie.
Oh my gosh, I remember that.
Frisco and Felicia's daughter. And the work, at that time, the work was, I'm going to start crying because it was unbelievable. I'm in my dressing room watching the monitor of what's being taped on stage. And Brad Mall and Christina and Jackie Zeman and just all the actors that were working, it was just unbelievable to watch what was going on at that time.
Yeah.
God.
And
Yeah,
then,
they said
so
that
what
was
happened was because of that
emotional stuff.
story, Christina wanted, because Maxie was going to die. So Felicia asked Mac, would you go try to find Frisco? I think that's how it happened. But anyway, I went, or maybe I decided myself, Frisco needs to know what's going on. So I went and I found Frisco and brought Frisco back to the show so he could be there for his daughter if she's going to die or not. And of course, she's pregnant off camera. So by the time she's pregnant, that works into the story that while Frisco was in town, he and Felicia hooked up. Now that's the conflict between Mac and Felicia as Frisco leaves the show to go continue his work with the WSB, and Jack left the show. So now that's another hurdle for Mac and Felicia to get over. And that's how Mac ends up raising two girls that he, had nothing to do with, basically. And Robin Scorpio, because, Tristan took off.
Yeah.
Happy Father's Day.
Exhausted.
He left his daughter.
Bastard.
Wow.
Tristan, I have to ask you this. Do you remember, during this time, I don't know what the storyline was first, but basically Jackie Zeman, Bobby, was BJ's mother, and you went to the Kelly's, and you were taking BJ, and I'm going to get emotional right now.
Oh, wow.
He went to Kelly's to take BJ from Bobby. It was
Yes, I remember it well.
It was a custody thing.
Yeah.
The scream, oh God, man, the scream from Jackie Zeman when Tristan was, she would not give him, so he had to step forward and take that baby out of her arms. I still hear it to this day. It
Really?
was so
Wow.
unbelievable.
Bobby, don't. Bobby, please. Please. No. Bobby. No.
Remember it well.
Oh,
Yeah.
so impactful. Just
That's a
incredible.
great compliment for Jackie. I mean, she just did a great job of screaming.
And Tristan to stay in the scene and do that work, it's just the yay.
But that's typical of what we did back then. And that had a lot to do with Gloria.
A tribute to moms all over.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people still talk about that.
Really?
That the BJ storyline and when I had to remove the child from Jackie. I mean, that's a hot topic of conversation sometimes. And I simply say, yeah, that's how we did things back then. We don't do things like that anymore. It's not the same.
Isn't filming in California open? I mean, they're allowed to?
Well,
Yeah.
July the 12th is the official opening date now.
Oh.
Oh.
And all that means is that you have permission to go ahead. If you don't have a plan in place for protocols, et cetera, no one's going to go ahead. It could be as stupid
I
as that.
think you guys should just do the show like a Zoom when you're all in quarantine.
Well, also, didn't you send me this, Teresa? They're saying they may even use the
Bold and the Beautiful.
The
Bold and
spouses.
Beautiful. Yeah, they're using spouses of the actors to do love scenes.
Well, they're not doing anything. Mom.
Well, they were going.
Ew! My wife makes me wear a glove and mask and a shield when I kiss her goodnight. I can never get in there anymore.
That's funny.
Oh, she's laughing. Just kidding, Vicky.
Tell Vicky to come say hi.
Vicky, come say hi. Oh, she has COVID hair. Whatever that
I don't know why.
COVID hair.
COVID hair is right in right now.
COVID hair.
is.
I had
Our
COVID
dining
hair.
room. Our dining room is her office, her temporary office. She works
Well,
as
hi,
a
Vicky.
talent
Yeah,
agent.
hi,
We
Vic.
can't
Oh,
see you.
cool.
Hi, Vicky. Everyone says hi. She loves everyone except me.
Yeah, I've been together too long.
The dogs say hi too.
Yeah.
So we get our grandkids tomorrow for a few days till Thursday. So Skylar and Lucille just turned 1, June 12th. And now Elijah's going to be 3, July
Is that
9th.
pictures behind you?
Yeah, but you know,
Baby,
those are
yeah.
all, I don't know, they're all kind of, she's a baby over there. And this is my niece, she's graduating. That's someone else, that's Vicky's mom, she's dead.
Oh,
Hey, they don't say little for very
She
long.
is.
that's funny. Thank you so much for being a part of this tonight.
Absolutely.
Really appreciate
Thank you for inviting me.
Thanks, bro.
Hey, yeah.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah,
Great
And
time.
I love hearing the backstories.
me too. I love
I
it.
really do. I love hearing people's stories. They're real, you know. It's like,
Okay, everybody, thus brings to an end another episode of 6 Blocks Apart. Let's give a big hand to our guest artist, John York. Thank you so much, bud.
All right, you
We'll
guys.
tell you
Thank
this will
you.
go out.
Yeah,
Stay well.
you too.
All right, you
Well,
too.
Talking about it.
bye.